Hi, this is Brent, and I wanted to mention before the show starts that there's a show on February 25th in Hollywood, California at the Improv, and it's a sort of Brent Weinbach and Friends show. I'll be doing a longer set, and there'll be some friends of mine. I haven't reached out to anybody yet, but I'll get that set up soon. Maybe hopefully by the next episode, you'll know who's on the lineup. I wanted to mention that, but I also wanted to mention that not during the main episode, but during the extended portion of the episode, I listened to some phone messages. And if you want to call, and sometimes I listen to phone messages on the main episode also, but if you want to call and leave a message, it could be for just to say hello, get something off your chest. It could be some sort of issue that you need advice about. You can call 213-207-6952, and you can call and speak your mind. Pour your heart out to me if you want. And I just wanted to mention that at the beginning of the show or before the show starts. But now let's go ahead and start the show. Welcome to the Brent Weinbach podcast. My name is Brent Weinbach, and I did just get a haircut because my hair was really beginning to look like a bird's nest. It was starting to sort of mushroom out, and it had been a couple months since I got a haircut, and I usually get haircuts every couple months, and the hair was just starting to become long and wiry like twigs. It just felt like I had twigs in my hair. It felt like my hair was twigs. And there were eggs. I started to have eggs in my hair. Sometimes people get egg on their face. I got eggs in my hair. And I'm talking about bird's eggs. I'm not talking about lice. I know you want to think it's lice. But no, I'm talking about bird's eggs. And that's why I go to Supercuts, is because they specialize in getting bird's eggs out of your hair. Supercuts, I mean, that's why they're supercuts. They don't just cut your hair, they cut the eggs out of your system. And in fact, I think that's their motto, Supercuts, no eggs. Or something like that. I think their motto is Supercuts, we cut the eggs. Cutting the egg sounds almost like an expression for passing gas, doesn't it? Like cutting the cheese, but cutting the eggs. Because I feel like laying an egg is kind of some sort of code word for going poo, maybe. And poo does smell like egg sometimes. But cutting the egg, I think, kind of works too. But anyway, that's kind of Supercuts' logo, I guess. Some people think Supercuts is bad, and I don't know, maybe it is. But it's not. I don't know. I've been going to Supercuts for years. I don't know. And maybe you think to yourself, oh, well, that's why your hair looks the way it does. I think you're wrong about that. It depends on, I mean, look, maybe the hair doesn't look great, but Supercuts, it all depends on who you get. And if you find somebody that you have a good rapport with, that you have a good connection with, then you could stay with that person and you can go to them at Supercut. Basically, Supercuts is just a place where people work, and they might have, there's lots of different skill levels that work at Supercuts and any chain salon or barbershop. But one of the things I do think I like about Supercuts is that there is some sort of standard. There does seem to be some sort of standard of, I don't know, order there, and maybe cleanliness or something. There is a mom and pop kind of barbershop near where I live, and I've peeked in there before and thought about it, but every time I peek, I think, I don't want to be in there. It's because of the standard. The standard's not there. The supercut standard's not there. I think to myself, I peek inside and I think, is this place capable of getting eggs out of my hair? And so I think, and it also just sort of seems kind of dirty in there. I don't know. It just seems like there might be some funguses on the corners of the room, or I don't know, maybe something crawling around in there. Lizards. There could be lizards in there. I mean, birds' eggs is one thing, but lizard eggs is another. Lizard eggs. When a lizard pops out of an egg, does it make you think it's a dinosaur? I guess our lizards I know alligators are related to dinosaurs, I think, right? Are lizards kind of mini dinosaurs? Did dinosaurs kind of look like lizards? But they say actually dinosaurs are connected to birds, that there's a connection between the birds and dinosaurs. So really, if I'm looking like a bird's nest, I mean, I'm kind of looking prehistoric, I guess. I wonder if, I guess man didn't exist at the same time as dinosaurs, but if he did, maybe he would have had a bird's nest for a hairdo, like me. It's hard to control when you've got the bird's nest for a hairdo. You have to, you got to calm your hair down. You got to stroke your hair. You got to pet your head and just sedate it a little bit. You got to calm your hair and tell it everything is going to be okay. Otherwise, it's going to be all wiry and twiggy. There was a model named Twiggy. Some of you younger people might not know this, but there was a model named Twiggy, and she was, I think, collaborated with Andy Warhol in the past. But I could be the next Twiggy. I think I could be the next Twiggy. But anyway. Getting your hair cut, I don't know, it's sort of like doing chores around your house. I hate cleaning. I got to be honest with you. Getting your hair cut, I only have to do it once every 2 months maybe, so that's only 6 haircuts a year. That's pretty manageable if you think about there being 365 days. There's probably 7 or 8 haircuts a year, to be honest. I go maybe a month and a half, 2 months, But when you think about doing chores in your house, you think, okay, for me, I will let things go about a month, and then I'll clean up. There's not going to be clutter in my place. You know me. I wouldn't like any clutter, but dust does collect, and there's things that just need to be wiped down. The house needs to be wiped down, okay? And, I hate doing it. It's a lot of work. Vacuuming, wiping. It's so much work, and it makes my fingers hurt. When I wipe the floors down, I don't just vacuum them. I wipe them down. You think, why don't you use one of those things on a stick? And I say, well, I just feel like I can't get into the groove unless I'm using my hand. I wear gloves, of course. I wear one glove on my right hand, and the other one is bare knuckle. And when I wipe, I go, ooh. I go, hee hee. I basically do kind of Michael Jackson sounds while I'm cleaning. I kind of helps pass the time, I do my Michael Jackson sounds, and I grab my crotch, I don't grab it with the dusty hand, though. I grab it with the other hand. Keep things clean. I don't want to get dust on my crotch. It's enough that I have eggs in my hair. I don't want to get dust on my crotch. I don't want to get mites on my crotch. If you had mites on your crotch, would that be considered crabs. Anyway, I hate doing chores. It takes a long time. I usually spread it over the course of 2 days or something. But I only do it once a month. Okay? Well, I'll clean the toilet a little bit more often than that, but I do it once a month. And when you think about it, that's only 12 times a year. And if you think about 12 times in the course of 365 days, it's really not asking much of me, is it? So stop complaining and just do it. I don't know. Sometimes I think people might wish this too, is that, do you kind of just wish that you didn't have to shave, that you can just shave and keep your hair the way you want it? Yeah, it would be nice, you know. It would be nice if things could just be the same all the time, but things grow and things change. Sometimes you have to welcome change, and that's something that I struggle with, you know, me, because I'm adverse to change. I like consistency. You know, I like being able to count on things, and I want to be able to count on you so don't go changing on me. You know, don't start doing these new... Some people like to change their style all the time, and I can't really keep up with that. I try to stay the same. I don't want to grow. Was Peter Pan adverse to change, do you think? Do you think that Peter Pan kind of had issues with his body kind of going through puberty and stuff? And that's why he didn't want to grow up, is he didn't want his crotch to smell bad, or he didn't want to get dust on his crotch, or he didn't want to get eggs in his hair. He didn't want to get pubic hair at all. Do you think that Peter Pan just sort of didn't want his voice to crack, or he didn't want to have underarm smell? Peter Pan, adverse to change. I never really related to Peter Pan, you know, but I always felt like he was a bit of a hot shot in a way that I didn't relate to. And in some ways, I kind of related to Captain Hook more. In some ways, I say, in some ways. I related to Captain Hook in that I had a hooked penis, kind of. He has a hook and I had a hook because I had a hooked penis. Because I had this penis that would kind of curve downwards, and it still does to this day, but it kind of curves downwards. It was kind of like a faucet. And that's kind of like Captain Hook. But the character that I kind of, or I don't know, the Disney animated film that I connected to the most was Pinocchio, that is. Because Pinocchio's story is about being mortified by puberty, I think. I wasn't mortified by puberty, but I think kind of the idea of becoming, your body going through changes, it's not something I was put off by, but it was something that I don't know, it was something that I did have to come to terms with in some kind of way or another. Do you not know what I'm talking about? Even the Disney animated movie expresses a lot of these ideas about a boy's body changing as he gets older. They go to, what is it called? Fantasy Island or something? No, it's not called that. What's that place called that they go to? Stromboli's place. Pleasure Island, I think it's called. Pleasure Island. And he's in there, and there's that other boy who's, I think, smoking, and can't remember if Pinocchio himself is smoking, but they start doing these kind of adult things. They're playing pool, I think. They're doing adult kind of stuff, you know what I mean? They're talking about penetration. And then they start to turn into donkeys, but really, to me, that's symbolic of their bodies changing as they're going through puberty. They get hairier, you know, they grow tails, which I feel like is, I don't know, to me, kind of penile in a way. And they grow, I don't know, their features get bigger. They get big teeth. And their voices crack. They start, you know, making donkey noises because they start doing that. That's kind of like a voice cracking. There's a lot of examples. There's a lot of signifiers of that. Oh, they're actually talking about going through puberty here. And also, let's not forget about Pinocchio's nose kind of growing long. There's something there about, I don't know, erections maybe, I don't know. And I did find that scene frightening when I was a boy. When their bodies changed into donkeys, I thought there was something scary about that. And I think I knew deep down that they were talking about puberty. And puberty didn't really hit me in quite the same way as I maybe thought it would, or as I was warned it would be. I don't think my voice ever cracked. I never cracked. Although sometimes I crack. I might be talking and I'll go like that for a second. I don't know why. Maybe just because I'm kind of just in an R&B sensibility sometimes, and R&B will sometimes make you crack like that. Because if you're, okay, let's just say I'm looking at a book right now, and it's called The Ultimate Alphabet. It's on the desk, or on the table here. And I might go, ooh, the ultimate alphabet, the ultimate alphabet. You see how I cracked like that? If I'm going R&B on the title of this book, the ultimate alphabet, the ultimate alphabet. I feel like R&B does that. It cracks. If you sing like this, then you might crack. You know what I mean? There's a crack there. The alphabet, the ultimate alphabet. I mean, I guess, yodelers are all about cracking too, aren't they? Yodelers kind of are probably the original crackers. I mean, in that they would crack kind of before it hit R&B, the R&B scene. Yodelers were the original crackers. Yodelay, yodelay. It's kind of, there's something kind of cracky about that. Can I get a penis? Can I get it in my mouth? 'Cause girl, I've been missing you. You. I shouldn't be singing right now or even talking because, believe it or not, I got sick once again. I went almost 2 years without getting a cold or any respiratory illness. I got briefly sick for, it was the most minor cold I've ever had in a long time. I think a couple months ago or something, or maybe a month ago. And then I'm getting sick today. Late last night, I started feeling it, but I didn't really think it was anything. And today I'm feeling it. But so far, these initial symptoms don't seem like it's going to be too serious, but I do have a sore throat, and yet I'm still giving you an episode here because I feel it's my duty. But I know where I got it. I know where I got sick. Yeah, I was around some children on a couple days ago. Not just children. I was around some adults, too. I was around a bunch of people. There was a lot of people in a small place, a small area, and I was wearing no mask because it was a thing I had to not wear a mask for, and I was exposed. I must have been exposed to somebody there. I'm not trying to blame the kid, although I'll just say it was an audition, all right? And that was a callback, and I was at this audition, and it was families. I was to play a dad, okay? And so then the previous week I was also at the first call for this audition, and this kid sneezed right next to me. He went, I mean, he did sneeze into his arm, but I was right next to it, and I felt like the spray from the arm could have sprayed right onto me. In fact, I feel like in some ways, him sneezing onto his arm, which I do appreciate, that's the way to sneeze, but I feel like in a way that could have, helped bank shot the sneeze onto me. He could have sneezed and then it bank shotted it off the arm and into my face because I definitely felt it. I mean, I didn't feel it physically. I didn't feel the spray on my face, but I did feel it emotionally. I was on the plane the day before that. I don't think it was from that. I'm on the plane. I'm fully masked. Okay, I'm a masked man. I'm a masked man. And I, look like some sort of superhero or something. I look like the Shadow knows. And I was on the plane, and there was this woman sitting next to me, and she was blasting herself with the air vent or whatever, the fan, the little fan thing. It's a thing that you kind of turn to open, and it opens, and there's a hole, and it blasts air. She was getting blasted, and I was feeling that physically. I was getting the rebound, and I thought, you sure you want this air getting blasted on you? This is sick air. Lots of sick people on the plane. I don't know why I wear a mask to prevent from getting anything on the plane. If you're sick and you're on a plane, I understand that you need to go somewhere. I get it. Sometimes you can't change your plans. You can't stay home from a plane trip. Take the plane, but wear a mask. Why don't you, huh? There was somebody sitting in front of me. I can't remember if it was the flight to where I was going or the flight back, but they were coughing up a storm, and they were snorting like a hog. What do they call it? They were kind of doing that a lot. They had something going on respiratory wise, and they weren't wearing a mask. It was a man. He wasn't wearing a mask. I think that's rude. If you have to go on a plane and you're sick, then wear a mask. Become a superhero like me, or a ninja. Think of it like you're being a ninja. That's kind of cool, right? Ninjas are cool, right? I mean, they were cool in the 80s, and the 80s is back. I wish. But anyway, this woman was getting blasted, and she didn't really have any entry points. I was thinking about trying to talk to this woman just to, pass the time, but I ended up falling asleep anyway. It didn't really matter. But there was a man sitting next to me on the flight there. This man I could have talked to easily. I wanted to be honest. I saw, you know me, I spy on these people a little bit. I take a look at what's going on in their lives. First of all, the guy definitely seemed bored. He kept on looking at his phone the whole time. The problem, though, was that he did have earplugs in his ears, or ear pods. And speaking of pods, by the way, okay, there was a guy to my left. I was in the middle. I was Moni in the middle. Okay? You know Moni in the middle. I was Moni in the middle, and the guy to my left, I saw him. He made a phone call, and I listened in pretty well to this phone call because, I just wanted to take a peek at his life. And he called the restaurant in the airport and said, "Hey, I think I left my AirPods in there." And he said, or earpods or whatever he said. I lost my earpods or something. And he said, "Did you see those?" And he was kind of trying to, get them to hold it for him or whatever, And then so I thought, okay, here's an entry point. I'm going to talk to this guy. I said, "Oh, that's cool that you were able to get a hold of somebody. I feel like when you call the airport, it's hard to get a hold of anybody." But he was able to do it, this guy. He got right in there. And I thought, oh, good for him. And I told him that. I said, "Oh, that's good." And then I said, "Well, I hope you get them." And he goes, "Well, I'm just glad it wasn't my ring, And I said, "Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, so these were not wedding pods, or they weren't wedding what did I say? I said they weren't wedding ear pods." And he said, "Haha, no." And I said, whatever. I made that joke with him, and I said, "Okay, we're off to a little start here." And but then I don't know. He kind of started watching a movie or something like that. He got into his own. Oh no, this is what happened. I ended up kind of getting tired, and I did fall asleep for a little bit. And I just fell asleep, kind of just head down sort of thing, nothing to lean against. He fell asleep too. Eventually started watching the movie. But anyway, what I really want to get to is the guy to my right, though. This guy, I was looking at him, and he had a lot of things that we could have talked easily. Here's why. All right. I was looking at stuff. He downloaded a bunch of, I guess, posts from the internet, and he downloaded them onto his phone to look at. And the stuff he was looking at, I knew stuff involved. There was some animated show that he saw a trailer for, and he watched the trailer a few times, and I watched it too from his looking at his thing. And I knew one of the guys who created it and who did one of the voices for it. Okay, and I thought, oh man, I wonder. Anyway, and that guy has a series and on the internet, and I was on that series, and I could have totally talked about it, and it's related to video games, okay? And so anyway, I said, and then I didn't say anything actually, and the guy on his charger for his phone or something, or no, it was a battery pack. He had some sort of pixel art thing on there, and I thought, oh, maybe he's into old video game stuff, which is something, and I thought, that's something I know a lot about, and I thought, oh, I can totally talk to this guy. But you know what stopped me? He had those plugs in his ears. He had the ear pods in his ears. And he was listening. I noticed that he was listening to something, and I don't know what he was listening to. I don't know if it was music or a podcast or whatever, but I did notice that he kept on every few minutes checking his phone, even though he couldn't, connect to the internet. He kept on looking at, he was just fidgeting around, and I thought, he's probably bored, but I thought at the same time, I don't want to, if he's listening to a podcast, I don't want to interrupt it, but I thought we could have had some serious, we could have got a rapport going, it could have been like a Supercuts rapport, me and him. So that was kind of a missed opportunity for him, at the same time, maybe he was listening to that stuff because he thought there was no chance he was going to be able to talk to me. I mean, there wasn't anything on me that could express to him, oh, we have something to talk about, but yeah, we could have my point is we could have talked. We could have had a connection. We could have talked about old game stuff. I'm pretty certain we could have talked about old games. I was ready to do it, and I almost jumped in there because he only had one pod in. And I thought, and then he put the other one in at one point, but I thought I could get in there right now. The best thing to do is if somebody goes to the bathroom and they come back, that's a good moment to say, hey, what's that pixel art of? What is that? What character is that? You get into it like that. And then I would have said, hey, by the way, I didn't mean to look over what your thing was, but, I noticed you were watching a trailer for this animated thing, and I said, and then I could have got into it from there, You think that he would have been a little put off that I was looking over his shoulder at his thing? I mean, what do you expect, if somebody's watching something, the other person's going to see it. You just have to know that's going to happen. So if you're watching a porno on the plane, just know that the person sitting next to you is going to be watching it too, probably, and taking notes, mental notes. They're probably going to want to talk to you about it too, They're going to want to talk to you about adult things, because we're not in Neverland anymore or whatever, We're adults. This is junior high. You know that reference? So anyway, that was a missed opportunity. Anyway, there was this woman who I was almost going to talk to about whatever. But as I recall, she didn't really have anything that looked like we could talk about, However, I did talk to her briefly because why did I talk to her? I did do one thing that was a little bit out of bounds. You want to know what it was? This was a little out of bounds of me, okay? But that fan was blasting her, and I kind of wanted to, I didn't want it ricocheting off of her onto me so much. So she had her eyes were closed. She was kind of sleeping or something, and I kind of tried to move the fan a little bit so that it was still hitting her, but not bouncing off of her onto me, kind of a thing. And I did that, and she didn't catch me doing anything. I was wearing, don't worry, I was like a ninja because I had a mask on, So she didn't see anything. I was very stealthy. But she did kind of open her eyes and move the fan thing again. So she must have, who knows, she might have sensed me too. She could have had some sort of oh, she was wearing a mask too. I remember that now. We could have bonded on that. She was wearing a mask as well. So maybe if she had some sort of ninja ability, she might have sensed me reaching up near her and moving the fan a little bit. That was a little, I'll admit, that was a little bit uncouth of me. I mean, that was, in fact, it was a little out of line. I'll be honest with you. That was out of line of me to move her fan. That's not that's her fan, okay? I'm in no position to move her fan. The only thing that made me feel a little liberal in crossing that line was that the fan was kind of hitting me also, because it was hitting her in a way that was hitting me. But anyway, but then later on, after the whole fan incident, what did we do? There was some reason why we talked. I know what it was. She got a can. She ordered a can of sparkling water or whatever, and they gave her the entire can. And I thought, oh, whoa! I said, whoa! They give you the whole can. I said, that's a serious portion right there. Usually they just give you the cup of whatever the drink is. They gave you the whole can. She said, yeah, I know, or something like that. She agreed with me. Yeah, we could have talked some more, but we didn't, though. It's all right. I kind of wanted to just smooth things over after the whole fan debacle. But yeah, I think I kind of slept most of that flight anyway. Sometimes sleeping on a plane does suck, but there's things about it that do make you want to sleep. You know, being in a car makes you want to sleep, doesn't it? You know, just the engine going consistently and the slight kind of rattle of a car, or the kind of slight sort of shakiness of a car that makes you sort of want to, I don't know, there's something comforting about that or something. And on the plane though, sleeping on the plane is so hard though, because you slide, baby, slide. You know what I mean? You know, if you sometimes you're leaning against the side of I had a window. You know what I'm going to talk about? I'll get into this in the extended portion of the show, but I got some ways of cheating a certain system for certain airlines, but I'm not going to get into it. It's not really a cheat. It's actually within the parameters of what they allow, but I'll give you some flying tips if you want to get into that in the extended portion of the show, but I'll talk about that later. I also have whatever, I'll talk about this later. But anyway, when you're trying to sleep against the wall of the plane, there's always that thing of when you just slide, you know what I mean? You kind of start sliding down the wall. There's just not enough grip. I need grip on my plane wall. You know what? They should put Velcro on there, and you put a cap on or something like that. You put a hood on that has Velcro on it, and then something so you're not slipping. It's so slippery. I'm just slipping down the wall, and then it wakes me up. It's kind of torture trying to sleep on a plane, but sometimes I do it anyway. And I get headaches on planes. And I get snakes on planes. Oh boy, people and their pets on their planes. I was at a thing, this is not a big deal, but I was at a restaurant yesterday. It was kind of a, I don't know, quick service restaurant. It wasn't a fast food place. It was a quick service kind of place. I was sitting outside, but there was a woman there who brought a bunny. She brought a bunny to the restaurant. Okay? I mean, look, people bring dogs, and I don't like that. And, they might bring one time I went to this group kind of dinner at a diner kind of a place. It was a deli, actually, a delicatessen. And someone brought a bird. And I know the person who brought a bird. And the bird was on the table. The bird was on the table pecking around at stuff. Then the bird was in my head, laying eggs, trying to incubate. You know, at Supercuts, they'll sit on your eggs for you at Supercuts. Did you know that? They'll incubate. They'll sit on your nest before they cut it down. They'll cut your nest down and then they'll sit on it and they'll hatch your eggs if they want them to. It costs $5 extra and they'll hatch your eggs. Have you ever sat on your own egg? When I go number 2, sometimes it feels like I'm laying an egg. I do feel that way. I feel like I'm laying an egg, and sometimes the egg cracks. And when the egg cracks, the yolk does spill. Yeah, that's called constipated diarrhea, and sometimes it happens. It's hard to push out, but when it comes out, the yolk is very runny. I mean, it's not just yolk, it's white. But in this case, brown. Brown yolk, brown white. It's brown egg white, brown egg yolk. The whole thing is brown. Yellow is kind of brown, though, isn't it? Yellow is sort of a lighter shade of brown, I would say. In fact, every color is a shade of brown, really. Well, particularly yellow, orange, red. They're all brown when you get down to it. Green is brown. Green is brown. I guess blue is kind of not really brown, I guess. Purple's a little brown. It's a little brown. Where was I? What was I talking about again? Was the plane? Sleeping on the plane? Snakes? Eggs? Someone brought a bird to the diner. I mean, I just thought to myself, I was done eating, fortunately, but the bird was the bird was rocking around. It had a guitar strap, and it had one of those kind of top hats, but it was kind of tilted and stuff. It was rocking around. It was rocking around the clock. It was a rockin' robin. It was a robin. Did I say it was a robin? It was rockin' robin. No, it was a cockatiel, I think. And it was kind of just walking around on the table and pecking at various things on the table. I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought, this is really an imposition, bringing this bird here. And that's how I got eggs in my hair. So, anyway, this woman brought this bunny. And now this was courteous. She did bring an absorbent pad. They're kind of, I don't know if they're called bed pads, but they're the kind of pads they're these kind of sheets that are absorbent. And they're the kind of pads you put on for old people in their bed, usually if they're having incontinence issues or whatever. You put those pads in there. I don't know if you've ever been to a nursing home or something like that, but they're in there. You can get them. And anyway, she got one of those, and she put that on the sort of bench or whatever that she was sitting on. And she put this little box that had grass in there and stuff. And so the rabbit or the bunny or whatever, it was in there, and then it came out on the pad. But at a certain point, the bunny did get down from the chair somehow, and the bunny was just sort of hopping around the area. And, I mean, I appreciate the pad. That's courteous. But I did kind of wonder if that bunny was going to come up to me, and I didn't really want it to. Then there was this woman who saw the bunny and was really enamored by the bunny, and asked if he was friendly or she was friendly or whatever. And anyway, the woman who brought the bunny let her hold the bunny, and I just thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, the bunny was right up on the table. I just thought it was kind of crazy that someone brought a bunny to this restaurant, But, as long as it doesn't get into my area. And she did bring the incontinence pad, in case the bunny has incontinence issues or whatever. At that rate, just put a diaper on the bunny. So, so anyway, yeah, I did that. You want to know something embarrassing? You know what I was doing at that restaurant? in this plaza at a coffee shop that was across the street from it, and I was there for a meeting. And I got there at this meeting. I was 5 minutes early to the meeting, and the people I was meeting with never showed up. And it was a half an hour into it, and I said, all right, I'm going to call it for myself, and I'm going to go eat at that restaurant across the street, or not the street, but across the way. And that's what I did. I gave up on it, and I thought, I guess they never showed. It's not the first time somebody's not shown up. Anyway, I went home eventually, checked my email, and I had the wrong date. I was supposed to go there the following week, so that was, I guess, a bit of a, that was a bit of a miss on my end, okay? I wasn't 5 minutes early. I was a week and 5 minutes early to the meeting. So I was really early to the meeting. And I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that I'm very punctual. I'm so punctual that I'll be there, earlier than is even good for me. So look, here's what's going to happen, all right? I'm going to wrap this main episode up, and I've got some messages from people, and I'm going to tell you secrets of flying on one particular airline. I'm not going to tell you what airline, but I've got some methods, and this is top secret stuff, okay? You can't tell anybody. By the way, I mean, it's whatever. It doesn't matter. This isn't going to be public, but you can't tell anybody about this. But it is actually, it does conform to their regulations, but it is a little bit of a workaround, okay? I'm going to get into it. And then I'm going to answer, I've got a text message, and I've got 2 voice messages. If you want to join me for this, you can go to patreon.com/poundcast, POUNDCAST. And you get the episodes a couple days early, and that's nice, right? And you can also, get access to all the previous shows, and you get the, previous extended episodes of the Poundcast, which were called Unzipped, and they were called After Dark at one point too. There's years of stuff on there, okay? We're talking years. In fact, come to think of it, we're talking something like 6 years of stuff on there. There's 6 years of a weekly podcast on there. I mean, of course, you can get that publicly, but the bonus episodes, and sometimes things get cooking in the bonus episodes or the bonus extended versions of the episodes, and there's 6 years of that on there. So go check out that, patreon.com/poundcast. All right, that's 1. 2, if you want to watch the show on video, you can go to youtube.com/@Brent Weinbach podcast. Also, if you like the show and you want to give it a positive review, you can go to Apple Podcasts and review it there, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give it a good marking. Give it a good grade. Maybe it helps people find out about it if you like this kind of thing. I'll just mention it again that I've got a show. I'll just push this one now at this point. February 25th. It's a Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. It's going to be Brent Weinbach and friends at the Hollywood Improv in Hollywood, California. So get your tickets now, and I'll be getting that lineup to you soon, okay? What else? I think that's about it. So see you in the extended portion of the show. Otherwise, we'll see you next week on the Brent Weinbach podcast. My name is Brent Weinbach. And thank you to Jack Birch. I almost forgot to mention. Thank you to Jack Birch for his help behind the scenes. And now I'll say goodbye. Bye.